Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Borderline Podcast with me, your host, Andrew Willox. And tonight, I'm sorry. Oh my God, why did that just have to pop up right there? Sorry. Go away. Stop this now. Fucking thing. Let's try this again. I hate going live. I don't know why I'm trying to do the live so much just now, but they are kind of ruining everything a little bit. Let's start again. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Borderline Podcast with me, your host, Andrew Willox. And I've decided to jump on this week's solo cast and to talk about antidepressants because that's something that's very relatable to me as ever. Just now, over this past week, I'm going to fill you up to date with what's been going on. And we're just going to talk about some of the misconceptions, the side effects, my own experience with different types, and how beneficial they've been to me at the time, okay? So it's been a crazy week. It's been a really, really, really crazy week in terms of speaking to new people that I've never met before in my life, and coming together through mental health once again. And this all came about because Dr. Alex George, absolutely superstar when it comes to mental health stuff with his content, as doing his Post Your Pill campaign, which I think is absolutely brilliant. It encourages people to post the pill that you're on, spread information and dismantle the stigma a little bit further. I think it's absolutely unique. So anyway, maybe last Wednesday or Thursday, he put this on, and I'd comment on I'd comment on his stuff quite a lot. It's what social media is for, after all, to connect and to communicate. And yeah, I just put on just about, on my trazodone, really like it so far. From what I had a year on in, it's really good. A little bit of drowsiness, and then a lot of people started asking questions because they weren't getting a lot of mirtazapine topics or replies. It was mostly sertraline or citalopram. So I was speaking to a couple of people about that, and one massively just hit me like a ton of bricks, which I'll go back into when we get onto more kind of sertraline. But anybody, I know I've done content on antidepressants before, and I know that I've spoken about my time and side effects on it, but I thought it'd be a good refresher again, for anybody that's maybe not heard these episodes. Plus, I'm better at it now, so hopefully I've got better kit in that. So hopefully it'll make more sense doing it again now. Anyway, so antidepressants, SSRIs are the most common ones, to be accurate actually on that. Antidepressants, like the words that we use when we talk about other mental health subjects such as suicide, you have to be very careful about how you describe them because some people can take offense to that. And straight away, we're going to go off the bat on that. We're going to dismantle one part of that stigma. Is a massive misconception about antidepressants, and that is happy pills. Okay, happy pills are so far from the truth of antidepressants. They don't make you happy. Let's go. Before we get to that stage, let's pull it back a bit. Let's pull the reins back and let's get to the stage of what we're going to go and have medical intervention for antidepressants. Okay, so let's just take an anxiety. Somebody has social anxiety. They've never had these feelings before, and then all of a sudden they start getting nervous. They start, sweat, whatever your symptoms are. They start developing. You go to the doctors, and you're probably, it's hard to say now because the way this conversation is going to go is not going to paint the doctors in very good light. If you are a doctor listening, if you are a doctor I'm off listening, and you want to listen to this story again, oh please, but it's not going to shed you in very good light. So now is your time to turn this episode off. Actually, I don't want you to feel bad about anything, so take my word for it. So you go down to the doctors. I was going to say there, the chances are you're going to be given CBT, but the state of the NHS just out is they're probably going to go and offer you a medication, which that in itself is the wrong move. Okay, we can start. Medication gets pushed out too much. All right, I'm a big pro medication person. I know a lot of people are very anti medication when it comes to mental health. I'm pro it. I'm pro that if this can help you get back on track, then 100% do it. That is what these pills are for. Sometimes they're for life, sometimes they're not. Some people just need them to get through a really hard time. They come out the other side and they taper off and they forget that they were ever on them. And they're always there if they ever need to go back. So you go down to the doctors, you might well get prescribed something. Being prescribed something isn't going to make you happy. It's going to make you more worried because you're not too sure how your body's going to react to it. Okay, so that's going to increase your anxiety tenfold to begin with. You're then going to start taking them. And as we're going to go through this episode, this is not like taking a paracetamol. This is not like taking an ibuprofen and it makes a headache go away. You feel terrible before you get to that stage. Okay, you're mucking about. That's the wrong phrase to use. You're trying to balance chemicals in your brain that you have no idea what levels they're at anyway. When we're talking about cortisol and serotonin, the likelihood is you've got a spike of cortisol and your serotonin production just isn't quite there. That's why that imbalance is there to begin with, and why you're getting them symptoms of anxiety, depression, whatever it is you're suffering from. That's why they're becoming more and more apparent. So to say they're happy pills is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, it's just, let's get that notion out of our language straight away. These are not happy pills. They do not make you feel happy. I've been on medication from 2017. Am I happy? Yeah, I'm relatively happy. Am I cured? No, you don't cure the stuff. It makes life manageable for me. Okay, making something manageable doesn't make me happy. So you can straight away see the misconception of where we're going there with antidepressants. So there's just so many side effects. It's too much to cover. Just getting some more. It's too much to. Before I go any further, I'm just going to go and see. Nah, I was trying to do an Instagram live at the same time with this through this feed rather than doing two separate ones, and it's just not working. So I'm just going to cast that to the side. We're live on Facebook, so if you're there, hello, thank you very much for joining me. And so we're going to talk a little bit about side effects, and this is where the part of talking to people for Alex George's things really comes into the fray. So I personally, I like to say, I probably started developing what I'd call my serious symptoms of anxiety probably around about 2012 or 2013. This is when they were really bad, okay? When I was having great difficulty kind of getting outside and interacting. Like I've said many times, I was having to use alcohol before I even started using alcohol, just to lower that nerve to have a social interaction with somebody outside of my own house. Even if I was inside my own house, it didn't feel that great. It was a really, really, really unpleasant time. This all came to my head when I went to holiday in the Dominican Republic. And it was my first time that I'd ever went to the Caribbean. And it was just a holiday of a lifetime. I absolutely loved that holiday. However, I cannot give it a 10 out of 10 holiday for how I felt during the time. I didn't eat breakfast that entire time. I would pick at things during the day, and then I'd eat at night time. And through that time, it was just constant alcohol, just to lower, because I just felt so nervous and uncomfortable. I was outside my environment that little bit too far. And as much as I love the holiday, it was absolutely amazing. There's a lot of kind of regret from my side for how I felt for my next holiday, which I'll go into as well. And yeah, it was pretty uncomfortable. Like you say, you just want to enjoy yourself. You guys will absolutely relate when you're confused and you're wondering why can't I just enjoy this? Why do I have to feel like that? It completely takes the fun out of it. Okay, if only stupid bloody snooze. I really need to do this Windows update. My laptop's only on for podcasts, and so every single time it comes do a podcast, I get a 5-minute countdown. Then I'm gonna have to do an update. No, so holidays, yeah, you're confused and you're worried about why this is happening to you. This shouldn't be happening to you. You're on 2 weeks relaxation. Nobody knows you. Nobody's judging you. Why should you feel anxious? Because you're out of your comfort zone and you're being faced with those anxieties on a day-to-day basis. Your body already knows, or your mind already knows, tomorrow is going to be the same. So I'll start making you feel, or for me anyway, I started feeling shit the day before going into the next day, as ever. So went for that holiday, and my symptoms from there just kind of got worse. I think at that point they'd kind of leveled off into anxiety. I was experiencing a lot of like heightened anxiety all the time. I was going through the stages that I had to be, I guess you'd call it functional anxiety. I look back now when I talk about the gym and that was brilliant. 5-6 days a week, that was good. That was functional anxiety. That was to get me away from feeling anxious in the first place. A lot of what I was doing for 2016 was just keeping on top of myself to try and keep away those feelings as much as I could. If I was active and busy, then I wasn't feeling these symptoms. When I'd stop, that's when I'd feel them. So to me, just keep on going. I ended up pretty exhausted by the end of that, hence the medical intervention. Come around to the 2017 and things hadn't really improved that much. I was still getting a lot of anxiety symptoms, probably worse than ever. It was really starting to affect my work at this point. I was standing on packing belts, screaming in my head to get off of there, because again, I've spoke about it before. It's like the fear of passing out, the fear of fainting, something happening like that. It was just going through my head the entire time. It was horrible. You can't concentrate. And I also had we went to the Dominican and we ended up speaking to this couple, and they just wouldn't be quiet about Mexico and how you should go to Mexico. So we decided the following year that we're going to go to Mexico later in the year. But I wasn't really prepared to pay that level of money again and to feel the way that I did, knowing that what I do for Dominican. And the minute that we booked that holiday, that anxiety started again. Like I said, think anxiety can be a year in advance at some stages. That's how far away your mind is ahead of you at times. Okay, so yeah, so we booked up Mexico, and that would have been October 2017. But as you know, I'm very busy during the summer, and at this point, I'm researching a lot more about mental health, and I'm starting to understand anxiety and really read about it and research it, so I could come to terms, and it's very helpful for me as well. And the more and more I was researching, the more and more it was coming back that I probably need to go on medication. At this point, we've done the CBT, we've done a little bit of talk therapy. Nothing's really scratching this, really kind of digging in underneath, scratching the surface to how this is actually helping me on a day-to-day basis, other than the times that I'm actually in that hour of therapy. During CBT, if you've done it, you probably feel okay during the CBT session because you are getting relaxed, you are meditating, you are talking about your problems. That hour's over, you probably feel really good about it the next day. Does that make your anxiety that much better? Brilliant if it does. For me, it did not. So I wasn't really prepared to go through that level of feelings again for a 2-week period that I paid a lot of money for, that I should be relaxing at as well. And it came to April. It was April time, and that's when I very first went on medication for this, which was citalopram at 20 milligrams. So really important now that we start talking about initial side effects, because this is a very, very, very important point. If you are considering going on antidepressants and medication, then please listen to this. When you first go on these, it is going to take a while for you to start feeling the effect of it. And what I mean by a while is, again, subjectively, we are all different. We're talking 8 to 12 weeks to really see a difference in the way that you feel. That can feel like an eternity once you've started taking these tablets, because these tablets will probably make you feel pretty run down and ill. What we'll go on to, they can actually become dangerous if not done correctly. So please, if you are going onto a medication, be aware that you probably will be hit with side effects for 2 to 3 weeks. If you do, that is just the chemicals rebalancing. It's how your body's reacting to that medication. You probably will get heightened anxiety. You probably will get heightened depression during this time. It's not very nice, not very nice. But this is the part that you really need to be as strong as you can, because once you get through that, you should see some improvements. I can't say you are, because again, we're all different. I can only talk about my own experience and others that I've spoken to. So leading on to that, side effects. Side effects are something that are just about unavoidable when we talk about these medications, and they're probably the main reason why people stop them, which we're going to, that is very dangerous, okay? Side effects can be anything: nausea, headaches, confusion, heightened anxiety, appetite suppression, appetite stimulation. Insomnia is a very, very, very common one. It's something that I started dealing with. I still deal with that today, but that again, that is a lasting side effect through this medication. It's something that my body still can't quite get over. That's why I can go through weeks and weeks and weeks, sleep absolutely fine, and then I'll be hit with a week where I'm only, if I am getting to sleep at night, but sometimes it's minimal, sometimes it's an hour, and it's in that kind of like residual, not actually really a sleep stage. That's something that I still battle with today, and that's something that I never had all my life. Maybe that is the anxiety, maybe that is the depression, maybe that's the medication. You have to look at it from all angles. So you have to be very aware that these side effects, although they tend to be very short term, they can be lasting. Very important to note that as well, okay? Just because you've started developing these symptoms again might not be because you or your environment's changing. It might well be because your tolerance to that medication is changing. That's something that, again, I'll go into myself when we talk about citalopram. So April 2017, we went on citalopram. I remember the very first time that I ever told anybody that I was going on to medication, the reaction was, what the fuck do you need that for? Didn't be so fucking stupid. That's a stigma. That's what you've got to overcome. That's the barriers that are getting put up in your head as well, is that you can't be open. You can't talk about this. This is shameful. It's not, okay? It's not shameful. Don't feel ashamed about taking a medication. Do you feel ashamed when you get a headache? Does that make you weak because you've taken something to get rid of your headache? Yeah, it's exactly the same. You hurt your back, you might need something more stronger than ibuprofen, okay? You might need codeine or something to help you sleep. Does that make you weak? No, you're just trying to get ahead and make your situation a little bit more manageable. That's exactly the same with this type of medication, like I say again. So to come around and say to someone, you don't need that. Yeah, my life's good. I've got a good job. I've got a nice house. I've got a mortgage on it. I've got a car. I've got a wife. I've got pets. I got a really nice life. But I'm still unhappy or not unhappy. I'm still got these feelings. It doesn't change how I feel as a person. I still feel weak and vulnerable. So if somebody's saying that to you, it's not the right thing to say. So be very, very, very careful. If you're on the other side and somebody's talking to you about these medications, don't shut them down and certainly don't blow them off. It's not nice, it's not wise, and it can be incredibly destructive for that person with their own journey and recovery. So please take a minute, think how you would feel if you were in that situation and you were wanting a little bit of advice, and key into that and go with it. Don't just shut people down straight away, because this is the stigmas that medication come with. The amount of time that he's not had his I've heard that before. He's not had his happy pills. And how derogatory. He's not had his happy pills. I smile fucking 90% of the day. Like, come on, I'm naturally quite a genuinely upbeat person. This medication was not going to make me any happier because I'm generally quite a happy person anyway. So to say that, you're not making any sense to me anymore. Okay. So yeah. Oh, also, yeah, another really common side effect is dry mouth. What do you think? Also need to talk during podcasts. But yeah, I think it's called zero stigma or something like that. It's the actual medical term for having elongated dry mouths. So yeah, you hear that people are on antidepressants. Don't judge them. It's not the thing that you want to be doing. They're on their journey. They're trying to improve their life. Help them with that. Don't push them back into make their life worse. Come on, think about a second. If you've got a brain, use it for just half a second. If you are capable of doing that, and like I say, think about yourself. If you were in that situation, just say that you did. Maybe you don't understand mental health. Imagine how stupid it would be if you turned up to work one day limping because of a bad back, and every single person stood and laughed at you where you tried to pick something up. How would that make you feel by the end of the day? Quite exhausting. Yeah. So let's try not to do it. Use that thing inside your head if you are capable of doing it, like I say, and just be a nicer, better person. Okay, it's not that hard. So April 2017. So yeah, I got some pretty. Yeah, I didn't feel too good for about 3 weeks when I first went into citalopram. Remember 20 milligram, and I kind of got like what I'm going to expect here. I could be totally wrong here, but I'm going to expect to say that the kind of common normal side effects that you get. By that I mean the headaches, the confusion, they're not really so you feel irritable. You just feel like you've got a really, really, really bad cold for a long period of time, plus a little bit of stomach upset and confusion, like say heightened anxiety. The heightened anxiety, the part is the reason why a lot of people discontinue their medication, because they take it and think this is making me worse. It's not, it's just taking time. And that comes with its own dangers that we're going to come back into a little bit later. There's also one main side effect that I'm going to talk about right at the very end as well that's very important to everybody, and it's very unlikely that you won't have been affected by it as well, okay? So I stayed on citalopram for years, for 4 years, 4.5 years at about 20 milligrams, and then I started noticing that I generally wasn't as good as what it was. I think this is around about COVID time, around about 2020. I noticed that my symptoms were kind of coming back a little bit again. I have to say, by the way, that holiday in Mexico was fantastic. No anxiety, had breakfast every day. My anxiety symptoms at this stage were pretty much non-existent as to how they were. Yes, they were still thoughtful. I've never been able to get rid of the thought, but the actual handling the anxiety was so much easier. I could throw myself into stuff, absolutely no problem. And I'd be really, really, really good at the other end of it. And I just, like I say, that kind of function anxiety as well, that kind of put me in a good stead. It's something that actually worked quite well for me. It kept me in balance in the gym, kept me on top of doing everything else in life. Generally really quite well done. But as ever, you build a tolerance to things, just like antibiotics, just like paracetamol, just like anything else. If you take it every day, sooner or later your body's going to get a tolerance. Same as alcohol, same as cannabis, same as caffeine, anything else. If you keep on taking it, your body's going to get used to it, okay? And I kind of think that's what was happening with me with citalopram. So around about 2020, we went up to 30 milligrams, and it didn't feel any side effects. I've never really been one that if I go on an increase, you kind of feel a little bit shitty for a couple of days, or have done, but nothing to the extent of the side effects that you get when you originally go on this stuff, or when you come off this stuff. We'll get onto that too. And lost chain of thought once again. Oh no. Yeah, my anxiety was pretty much non-existent until 2020. So we went on 30 milligrams, and again, life was pretty good. we're balancing lockdown, and that wasn't lockdown for me. I still go back onto. I understand why we were on lockdown. I look at lockdown and I think, fuck off. Like, really, that was so bad for you. I was doing so well in life. Like, I really was. Like I say, I was kind of okay. We could call it functioning anxiety again. Maybe that's not addressing the root of the problem, but I was very contained. I was doing my life. I was going through the motions, and I was enjoying myself. That's the most important part of it. I was really having a good time in my life. And then lockdown happened. It kind of fucked everything up, didn't it? So I think a lot of that, like even socially now, I'm nowhere near as good socially out. If you see me speaking to people, I consider myself quite socially awkward now. Um, I just I've never relearned how to be social again since lockdown. That's something that I do plan on addressing. Don't worry, in the future. But kind of painting the picture here of where we're going with this conversation. So lockdown, as we know, we kind of went on for a while. I just got worse during that time. I started drinking more. Like I said, there was nothing to do. There was nothing to do. I know that saying don't go drink. That's just so stupid. But how many other people were doing this? And it was, but when you have a mental health condition, when you have depression or anxiety, you don't want to be doing that. It might feel good at the time, but my God, that lasting effect is not good for you. So we kind of managed ourselves through lockdown, and through there we ended up going up to 40 milligrams because the 30 milligrams just wasn't really doing anything. So 40 milligrams of citalopram is really the highest dose that you're going to ever be able to go at. Um, you might get a couple of GPs would possibly go to 45 to 50 milligrams, but up in that sort of bracket, you're getting into some really serious side effects, more to do your heart and your blood pressure, stuff like that. You don't want to be mucking around in the higher doses for any length of time. And like I said, this is to make life manageable. I'll address something here really quickly, is that let's think of depression and sadness again. These are two totally different things. People can need to go on a medication, and I don't want to downplay it because you're sad, because something's happened, because you're grieving. I'm not displacing that grief. I'm not minimizing it, saying it's not as important as anything else. You might have a period of time that you just can't get through, and that medication is just to get you from there to there, to get you back on through that hard time. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? But these are kind of long-term fixes. So to be above the dose that is recommended is not going to happen for any long term. So I knew kind of that place I was getting stuck because I was at the upper end of where I was. I still had these feelings. Now we tie into the conversation right at the back at the start of the podcast when we go to Alex George. Now, in December 2022, that is when I was just really quite low, really developing. That's when I kind of, if I'm really, really, really honest with myself, that's probably when the suicidal thoughts, as I know it, like real ones, really started kind of chiming in with me as well. And it wasn't a really nice time. And I knew I had to make changes. This anxiety, this head noise, it wasn't nice. I was getting a whole host of symptoms that I wasn't used to, that I dealt with before as well. And again, you come back to that confusion, that anger, that sadness, that emptiness, that there is no hope. I'm going to feel like this for the rest of my life. I don't want to live like this. There's all this stuff going through your head. And it's not a very nice time. So I had to make a change. And that change was to go to the doctors and to try a new medication. Sorry, I'm just thinking about where I'm going with this properly. Taking a little bit of time to think. And so I went to the doctors and I spoke to, I tell you what, I'll just use surnames. I spoke to Mr. Graham. That's all we're saying on that. And I know a lot about mental health and medication. Okay. Like I've done a lot of research. Like I say, I've started researching this stuff since when I started pretty much getting the symptoms of it. So maybe 10 years in the bag, I kind of know my shit on this stuff. But I have a real problem. Anybody that's listened to Kevin Palmieri's episode, I've really got a real problem challenging men on their reviews as well. So typically, if somebody says something to me, I'm going to go along and do it anyway, even if I know it's probably not the best thing to do. I'm a very much yes man in that respect. Again, functional anxiety. And so I went and spoke to him. And these things, when you do a switch, if you go to the doctors and they're on about switching and they say anything under 12 weeks, say no. Just say, well, 8 weeks. 8 weeks. If they're trying to get you from one, I mean, like the time span of tapering to being on a new thing, if this is in an 8-week period, you tell them to forget it. It's so dangerous. So I was speaking to Mr. Graham, and he I remember the top end of citalopram. Citalopram in America is known as a suicide drug because so many people commit complete suicide. Still working on my vocabulary. While under the influence, that's again the wrong word to use, of citalopram. They're taking citalopram, they're tapering off citalopram, suicide increases. That's what's called in America. So I was very, very, very naturally very worried about coming off of this, especially because of the fact that I was having a lot of suicidal thoughts at the time. And I spoke to the doctor about this. And basically from December, I can't tell you exactly how quick this was, but basically from the start of December to my Christmas holidays, which is usually around about the 20th, I was on sertraline. So that's a 3-week period. We went from 40 milligrams down and onto another SSRI. Different SSRIs do slightly different things. They all kind of do the same umbrella. They all generally increase serotonin production, or reuptake, you should really call it. But there's slight differences in the kind of subchemicals that they can kind of accompany, sort of like noradrenaline or something like that. So you have to be incredibly careful when you're going from one SSRI to another SSRI, or an SSRI to an SNRI. And there has to be a safe route. What's really worrying is every single time I go to the doctors, they don't know this. It's fine that they do, because they obviously they don't want to second guess themselves and they go look it up. But the times that I've been at the doctors, they don't have a clue how to do this transfer. They have to go on the line. They have to read the same website stuff I've just read about 2 years ago. And you're sat there, you're like, I know the answer for this. I'm not going to tell you. You should know this. I can give you my opinion, but what does it matter to you, because you're going to go with this anyway. And yeah, so I knew, annoyingly, I knew in my head this was just such a bad decision to make, to do this so quickly. In my head, I was thinking December, mid-January, end of January, you'll be on sertraline, or you'll just be tapering off the citalopram. In my mind, if you're on 40 milligrams, you should be 10 days for 10 milligrams reduction. That's the way that I would do it. And you probably want a little bit of time in between where you either don't have anything in your system, or there's a very weak introduction of the next inhibitor. So what I mean by that is getting citalopram down to around about 5 milligrams and introducing sertraline at the same time at a low dose. Yes, they shouldn't be introduced together, but such superficially low doses, you might see there might be a less of a chance, a probability of developing quite serious side effects. But if a guy had literally went from 40, 20, I don't even know if I got down to 10. I think I got down to 10, and at 10, I started 10. Something, or 10 and 15. I can't really remember. Anyway, my fucking God, did I feel awful. The worst side effects I can genuinely think of in my head. I've said it before, and this isn't wanting to create another stigma for another condition. I genuinely believed that I was developing schizophrenia when I started taking sertraline. I had these auditory hallucinations. I had severe insomnia. There was no thought process inside my brain other than intrusive thoughts. I had no appetite, nothing. Everything that I was worried about was now there. I was incredibly suicidal because that's how it made me feel. I felt worse, far worse. And I had to say, I know this stuff. I know what's happening to me. And I know that I just need to get stronger and see that at the end of it, my God, it was brutally hard. And I was so angry at that doctor. Because when, later on, how did it go? It was terrible. Oh, I'm confused. What? I said, well, you've done it too quickly. At this point, I'm raging, so I've got no fucking problem telling you your issue. Which is, again, hands up on my part. That's, I'm responsible for me at the end of the day. I should have been onto that. But it's a joke. You're getting paid to do this, and you're actually under definition as the mental health pharmacist. Get to fuck. You don't know a thing, pal. Sorry, I'm trying not to get myself wound up, but seriously, you're going to cost somebody their life if you keep on like that. And that isn't bullshit. That's fact. The reason I know this now, and not specifically you, but because of the doctors, is because I thought I was the only fucker in the world that had this happen to me. I was gutted that this happened to me because it set me back so much in my mental health journey. Last week, I commented on Dr. Alex George's post about mirtazapine, like I said, and a girl had messaged on that post just saying, oh, that's really interesting. I've not seen a lot of posts about mirtazapine. They're usually all about sertraline or citalopram. So I messaged her back just saying, yeah, just feel free to drop me a message if you ever want to know anything else. I've been on it for a year, so happy to help you. Shortly after, she had messaged, and we're just talking about mirtazapine, how we'd fought, and at first instance, I thought that was the first medication that she'd been on, and I thought, wow, if they're going to prescribe her mirtazapine first, this is a step forward, because I really like mirtazapine. Now, I've heard really good things about it. You can actually look at the scientific literature as well. It's very, very, very effective compared to the other ones too. Something important to note. And she started talking that she's had real issues with medication and stuff like that, and it got to a point that she was actually admitted to A&E for 7 weeks, and very, very, very dangerous. And surprise, surprise, to my absolute disgust, shock, and horror, she had the like for like switch from citalopram to sertraline, exactly as I did. We both agree multiple times during that conversation how dangerous that is, how dangerous that was for the doctors, knowing that they have the information in front of them that they read off that would have told them that is not a safe procedure to do. You cannot do that. More so if that person is sat there telling you, I feel like I'm going to die, I feel like I'm going to commit suicide. Forget about switching an SSRI directly to another SSRI without using at least 8 to 12 weeks. I'm gutted for this lass because I know how hard it was. I know how fucking brutal that was every day to feel a purpose and to feel try and get a little bit of hope out yourself. It was horrible. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I feel the pain because I have experienced the pain. And it just hit me like a bus that I thought, no, 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 no. This can't happen anymore. You have to do whatever you do with a podcast and put that message out that this is not acceptable. This should not be happening in 2024. We're talking about mental health bills getting passed. We're talking about this. The people that are doing the action need to be sufficiently trained before we even get to that stage, okay? Because right now, we are hopeless, we're clueless. I think I've had one doctor in the last 6 years that I actually trust. I've been laughed at in a doctor for saying that I feel suicidal. That's how fucking stupid the NHS can be at times. So if I don't trust the doctor, it tends to be for reasons that are actually genuine, okay? Ah, man, I get angry at this. Sorry. It frustrates me because when you feel like that and you're so low, you're giving yourself a reason to stay alive. You don't want another reason to stop being alive. And this is why it angers me so much. To get down to the doctors takes a lot of strength. Okay, it's a massive, massive step that somebody's about to undertake to feel better in their recovery in their life. And you fuck it. You fuck it, and you fuck it time and time again. And you need to start getting it right. And you need to start learning. You need to start learning of your patients, of how they feel. Stop going on to this stupid little NHS page that tells you this for that. It doesn't work. Okay, it might this part on the scientific literature might work. It doesn't work for the individual. Trust us on that. Please do some more research, all you doctors, especially Mr. Gray. That's that bit done. Very sorry. I literally thought that I was the only person in the world that would have had that happen to them. To hear something that happened to somebody else was gutting. It was gutting. Like I say, it's not relatably nice because I know how they felt, and it's not nice. However, it brings about this topic, this uniqueness about mental health and the way that it can connect us together. I'm getting quite emotional during this. I got work later. Mental health can connect you in a conversation that no other conversation can take you to. And what I mean by that is when this girl's messaging me that, I feel that in my stomach because I've related to that. I know she doesn't have to explain how it made me feel, how it made her feel. She doesn't go into depths how it made her feel. The connection's there. If you speak to somebody about mental health and they've also been in that, they've walked them shoes, they've walked that roads, you don't need to explain to them. They know. And there's no other conversations in the world that connects people like that. It's why I love mental health, and it's why I love these conversations, and it's why I love doing this, because every week is different. Every week is different. I never anticipated that would happen, and it happened. Who knows what's going to happen in the next week? Maybe now Ranger will come back on. Joking. And no, it's reassuring, I guess, to know that you are not alone, especially when we talk about such horrific circumstances. But it's gutting because that's two people that I know of, and that just has my brain going of how many other people have been through that. It's not fun. It's not good. Really, really dangerous. So I was only on sertraline for a very short period of time, It was around about 6 or 7 weeks, advocating that you shouldn't just stop a medication. I had to stop taking that. If I'd kept on taking that, I don't think I'd still be here. And that's how I felt at the time. I just have to be honest about it. It was horrible. It was so confusing. And then we ended up going back on the citalopram, and surprise, surprise, that's when I had my first mental breakdown. So, if we're going to go into the relevance and the danger of others' inability to research and make the right choice, there's your evidence right there. That is the very first time that I ended up off work for a long period of time. I was being sick every day. That was shortly after going back on the citalopram. It was probably the second worst time in my life, coming up to what happened later in that year. It was horrible, and I knew a lot of it was because of that medication. It just felt like one thing happened, you kind of got over it. The next thing happened, kind of got over it. Another thing, it was just a bump in the road comes, and she's being sarcastic. Love that kid. And so we ended up back in citalopram. Pardon me. And a lot of you know from Andrew's Anxiety Adventures, hello, if you're following me across on there, and from other podcasts, if you've listened to the things, that when I was back on citalopram, I felt exactly the same as what I did when I was on citalopram, and that was suicidal. Wasn't really doing much for me, for my anxiety and my depression. I was back to square one, and I was needing to make another switch. My God, was I not going with Mr. Graham? He was told this, I'm not using you again in my life. We then went to the other doctor who laughed in my face. We then finally found a doctor that was actually quite good, and we spoke at great length. She was incredibly angry, quite rightly, to her colleagues for being so incompetent. And that is a doctor that I can trust now, probably for the rest of my life. So I'm really glad that I found that doctor. It's really important to get a doctor that you trust. There is another one that I go to just now that I've only seen once, but this lady, if you know who you are, you honestly, in some respects, you may have saved my life. So thank you very much. Just for listening to me and just for letting me talk about what had happened to me, and then coming to the issue. She prescribed me mirtazapine. I'd never heard of mirtazapine. I gave her a whole list of symptoms. My insomnia was back worse than ever at this point, as you just will know after mental breakdown 2.0. And she was brilliant. And the reason why we went mirtazapine was because it is a bit of a sedative, like I've said before. It can make you really drowsy, and it does help with insomnia. Can't say I'm fixed from insomnia, but I'm I'm a lot better than what I was. And yeah, that was a good switch. That was after the P season. That was around about October 2023. Let's talk about side effects on mirtazapine for a second. I can't really give too many on sertraline other than like just the worst, like the worst. Think of the worst flu with all this anxiety and all this depression, and then chuck some hallucinations in there that you genuinely think are real for the shits and gigs. And that's how I felt on sertraline. And mirtazapine was night and day with that. There was side effects like you do, kind of the nausea, the body aches. I think I was off work for maybe a week and a half when this was happening. It is good, and I will say this to speak to your employer if you are going at this. If you have an employer that understands it, that's also very important to make that judgment by yourself, please. But you're going to do really well not to be off work if you start taking this medication and you start getting side effects, because it really can make you feel quite ill and run down. So yes, I'm really lucky. I can be really open and honest with my boss, and we can talk about my mental health, and we can come to resolution. Work has been absolutely brilliant for me. Okay, it might not be the best place that stresses me out, but my God, were they understanding and were they helpful at my time of crisis? I owe them that indefinitely. So yeah, speak to your employer. It can really help. You might need some time off. Drowsiness. Now, drowsiness seems to be the common one that I keep on hearing back for everybody else on mirtazapine. And yes, mirtazapine can make you incredibly drowsy. The reason behind this, I think I put a video on not so long ago, is very simple. And that is because mirtazapine can extend your REM or deepen your REM cycle, your sleep. And when you're in a deep sleep, if you're in a deeper REM cycle, you're going to wake up feeling drowsier. Simple. Mirtazapine does that. If that's affecting you to the point that you're really struggling to get out of bed, then I would advise going back and speaking to your doctor, asking them for any advice. Perhaps the dose is too low, perhaps the dose is too high. again, these can be configured to work just as they should do for you and you only. They are subjective. So if you need 5 milligrams, somebody might need 30 milligrams. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay, you're using them to manage your own symptoms. It's not a contest. There are another major one. Look at me. I'm like 10 stone wet just now. I'm not really. And the another one that I hear a lot of is it's an appetite stimulant, and a lot of people gain weight off of it. Can't say I've had that. I wish I had. At times, mine's is the reverse of that. The appetite suppression is something that I really get quite bad of mirtazapine from time to time. But again, that plays into insomnia, how you feel. You know how it is. You get exhausted. You can't really be bored cooking. You can't really be bored cooking. My problem is that then I can't be bored cooking, so I'll sit there and then I'll go pick on something. And to me, that's sufficiently adequate because I made that effort to go and actually eat something. So there you go. You went ahead and done it. So well done. It's not the way to live. We're getting through that now, luckily, too. So I'm just looking at some notes. Although, ironically, we talk about hallucinations on sertraline, mirtazapine, when we talk about probabilities, is the highest probability that you are going to experience some hallucinations. Time that back into the REM cycle. It can alter your REM cycle for better and for worse, too. So you can start experiencing, visual hallucinations, auditory hallucinations. There's something that I've not had as well, which would. So far, mirtazapine, it is something that's been messaged to me before, so I do know it does happen. However, I like to look at that in a completely different motion when we talk. There was one lady had reached out, I think it was on TikTok, and she was talking that she'd seen her nan at the end of her bed. I like to think that is good positive energy, that there's somebody looking out for you and you are actually seeing them. It'll make you feel a little bit better about yourself, and just believe it. Just believe that. It doesn't matter if nobody else does. You believe that. It's going to make you feel better. That's just the way that I look at that instance. Don't actually look at that as a medication. I look at that as a natural event. As you know, I'm very much into my spiritual journey, and as you know, I'm into all things paranormal. So for me, that's actually a real event. Take comfort in the fact that she's checking on you because she probably knows that you're going through a very hard time. And if you are watching, thanks a lot for dropping me your message and allowing me to talk about this again. And so, but there's one side effect we have to talk about because we're all adults here, men or women. You're probably going to get hit with a bit of lacking of the libido. Libido, if you don't know what that means, it is your sexual health. These medications are notorious for lowering your libido, lowering your horniness, one for a better word. Happens to me, happens to just about everybody I talk to about these medications that get to that trust that we're talking. Very, very rarely. Maybe they're not being truthful. I don't know. Do I ever heard that it hasn't affected them in any way? This can be small, inadequate, what might seem to some. Maybe a few days out of the week, you just don't feel that way. And that's all you think. There would be other end of the scales where you can go months without feeling that way. It's just because these chemicals are trying to balance in your head. Keep in mind, while this is happening, you're still living everyday life. So you're going to get a stress factor that's going to send them chemicals kind of thing as well. You walk out in front of a car, just because you're on this medication, you're not going to stay in the car and go, what shit, bruv? You're going to jump. You're going to get a fright. That fight or flight response is still going to be there for you. So, you go into work and you get a bollocking, you're still going to feel as shit as you did. This medication isn't going to prevent you from that. It's going to trigger something. So be very mindful of that too, that when we're talking about like long-term side effects as well, it can be environmental factors that are leading to you feeling that, again, not specifically the medication. So really important to understand that. But sexual health is something that needs to be spoken about a lot more when it comes to these medications, because nobody wants to admit that they don't feel horny. I wonder why, but it's true. And the more we talk about it, the more we start dismantling the stigma. And you never know, the more and more people that talk about it, you might start seeing a reaction on the other side of that when we deal with these issues from a therapeutic point of view, that maybe we'll get administered something that balances the books yet again. You never know. This is all awareness. This is why we talk about it. It goes somewhere and it can mean something to somebody. And in the future, maybe that meaning will create a greater happiness for somebody. I think I got that right. So sexual health, yeah, I can't. It happens to me. It happens to me. Okay. There's some days, but can be days on end. It's just something that will not trigger into my head, and then all of a sudden I'm like, you know what it's like. And then again, maybe a week or two, there'll be nothing there, and then, so yeah, it's just how life is. It'd be better. It'd be better if that didn't happen, but it does. Okay, so let's just be honest about it, and let's talk about it. If you feel in a place that you can. The last thing that I want to talk on when we cover medication is stopping or tapering off, because this is such a dangerous subject in itself. Like I've said time and time again throughout this, you can get a medication and you can get an increased level of anxiety. You can feel more depressed. You could start getting more suicidal thoughts. They're all subjective. However, what isn't subjective is the chances are that if you just stop taking it as in that's it, I'm not dealing with this, stop, you're going to feel worse. You're going to feel worse than the side effects that you'd already be probably feeling. It is not safe to do that, okay? At time, this is where suicide numbers again play into these factors, is that there is a definite correlation between people stopping medication and then completing suicide. It happens. And it happens because people are underprepared for what they expect to happen. They expect that when they stop taking this, just like a paracetamol, just like an ibuprofen, they're not going to have these feelings anymore. It's going to take time. You want to slowly do this. Like I've said before, you want at least 8 weeks, irrespective of what dosage you're at. If you're at 10 milligrams, use that 8 weeks. Use 4 weeks at 10 milligrams, or 2 weeks at 10 milligrams, 4 weeks at 5 milligrams, 2 weeks at none, while you introduce, if that is the way you're going, you're introducing another inhibitor. If you're coming off completely, then you've got a 2-week dwell time to see about how you feel. If you feel that you then need to go into another route of medication, you can do it safely, because the rest of that SSRI, the half-life, it's completely gone now, okay? You can start moving forward. If you get to the end of that 2 weeks and you think, actually, I want that back. That wasn't too bad. You can safely go back. That's why I recommend taking it very nice and slowly. If you do what I did and you go bang, 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 you ain't going to know where it started going wrong. That's very important to know. And you can't then go bang, 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 down, bang, 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 up. That is not going to work. You're really going to do some damage, or you potentially could do some damage to yourself, I should say. You have to talk to people about this, okay? This is not something that you should do by yourself. I will recommend that you speak to a doctor. After everything I've said there, I know that probably isn't the best recommendation. However, they are going to be able to do this in what I call a safer environment than if you just do it by yourself. If you do not want to go to the doctors, and personally would understand exactly why, I don't trust them very much as well, apart from the lady that I was on about, then talk to somebody else about it. Please talk to somebody else, a family member, a friend, somebody that knows you, and somebody that can check in on you, somebody that will check in on you. Don't tell it to the friend that's going to forget about it and not do anything about it. This is vital information about you and your life. So speak to somebody that you can trust, that you know that maybe in a week's time they're going to drop you a message and say, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Is everything going okay? That's the kind of line that you want to be going on with trust. You need to be having this, because there probably will be small changes, even if you don't feel them, that other people are going to be picking up on as well. Okay, you might get more irritable. You might get more agitated. You might get more anxious. There might be a situation that you've been dealing with fine, and then all of a sudden you can't deal with it because you've got these feelings rushing back. You just have to be honest. You can lie. You can lie. So if maybe you had plans and you don't want to do it anymore, it can be as easy as just saying, look, no, I'm busy now. I'm having to work. I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. But if you're honest, they're going to appreciate, they're going to respect that, and you might get some questions back to help you in the long term too. So that's really vital to know. Seriously, please just do not, especially if you're on high dose, don't just stop taking it. Please just do not stop taking it. It's so dangerous to do so. Like we've spoken about there, that was over a course of, between me and this lassie, maybe 3 or 4 weeks. The damage done there was horrific. That was in a fast period. This is what I mean, that if you're on the higher doses, you really need to be pushing up to the 8 to 12 weeks time to start figuring out these medications. I'm not a doctor. I can only go by what I've experienced, okay? I can't give you medical advice. I can't tell you this is what you need, this is what would help you. A doctor can help you do that. But what I would say is never be afraid to challenge them. That's a mistake that I've made. And looking back throughout this episode, I wish I'd done. I wish I'd challenged that doctor. I wish I'd said, no, I don't think this is the right move. I think we need to look at this from a different angle. I think we need to take things slower. I'd heard such bad things about sertraline as well. I wasn't even happy about going on sertraline. That's what I mean. Like, there's sertraline as well. I've heard that people have had really good administration on sertraline. So I'm not hating on sertraline. Like I say, they're all subjective. People have tried to, there'll be people that's had metazapine that will probably think it's the worst drug on the planet. I think it's absolutely brilliant. This is the subjectiveness of these conversations. Talk to somebody. If you are wanting to go on medication and you are watching this episode, drop me a message. This is a topic I have no problem talking about at any time of day because it's so important. I know how important it is to other people too. If you don't believe in medication, that is fine. That's absolutely no problem, okay? That is your opinion. I'm not here to change that. Nobody's going to be here to change that. However, be open-minded that these can work for somebody. A comment that absolutely triggered me for the wrong reasons was on that stupid podcast last year that turned into be a sales call. And the guy was asking me, it's true. I can't take this part away from him. It's true, but that's just the misunderstanding of the medication is how many people that are on medication for depression still suffer from depression. Yeah, I'm on medication for depression. I still suffer from depression. But in the same way that people with cancer go to chemotherapy, still have cancer. You can't cure depression. Fucking use that thing. You can cure cancer. I know that. And I know people can get out of their depression, but generally, very hard to say that I don't live with a life with depression anymore. If you're being incredibly honest, is what I mean by that. So be open. Don't just shut somebody down straight away. Talk about it the way that we're doing it just now. And, try and make a new life for yourself. I hope this episode has been educational for you. I hope it's been a little bit informative. America as well. Get voting today. It's America. It's election day. Your vote is going to make a massive difference. The likes of us across the pond, please vote wisely. Please vote wisely. Obviously, I'm not American, so I shouldn't even really have an opinion on that or who to vote for. I'm not going to say anything on here anyway. That'd be rather silly. Especially, thank you to America for my flurry there every week of podcast views. Yes, we got 200 to talk about that. Sorry, we got 254 hours of podcast plays in a 6-hour period in America that week. So that was the big. It was really exciting. It's a momentous occasion. So also November as well, guys. Like I say, we're clean shaven-ish. I've got to go and have a proper wet shave soon. The mustache, of course, is growing out now. My links in my bio if you are following me on Andrew's Anxiety Adventures. Love a donation if you could do one, even if not to me. Team Smarter. We are smarter. Team Sparta. We're trying to get £5,000 this year for November. So any contribution towards any of the Team Sparta members would be lovely. Trust me, it really goes a long way into helping people like me get back on track and really developing their life and their life skills later on with dealing with mental health disorders and, of course, the likes of prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and suicide awareness. They're all very, very, very important. If you are watching on YouTube, then please drop a like on this video and do subscribe for further content. Again, it really, really, really helps me get into the algorithm. Even if you don't want to watch this stuff, dropping that subscribe tells YouTube more people will watch. When we start the snowball, more people will start watching. We start getting the availability to start watching it. We pick up more people and less people suffer in silence alone, and we can reach more people and we can help more people. And that is why we are doing this. I really hope this has been an educational episode for the right reasons. I'm really sorry if any doctors are watching and I have named you specifically. Do better is where I'm going to leave that. And yeah, we got loads of cool guests coming up. I'm well aware that Simon Dwan's episode is, of course, delayed. Surprise, surprise. It has been a nightmare to edit is the only reason for that. You will find out, hopefully at the end of this week, what that episode's all about. We'll try and get that out. And yeah, we've got a couple of other guest shows coming up later in the month too, which I'm really happy about. We're also going to start honing in on some Christmas specials because I know Christmas is around the corner, and with it, a lot of happiness and a lot of sadness. We have to cover that too. So yes, we'll end this one there. This has been the Borderline Podcast with me, your host, Andrew Willox. Good night.